Empirical exercise for the course, a statistical method in finance. In this exercise, you are supposed your favorite software, whatever software you are comfortable with. There is no obligation which software you use, but you are required to obtain daily close data for S&P 500 index from Yahoo in some specified dates, and calculate the log return, calculate the summary statistics, then plot a histogram, use the normality test of the software to see if this log return follow a normal distribution or not, and use the functions provided in the software to calculate and plot the autocorrelation for at most 10 lags. Then you are going to calculate the square of the log returns that you already calculated here in step 2. And finally, you are going to plot the autocorrelation for these log returns, squared log returns. Although you can use any software, even you can use Excel to do these exercises with some, of course, with a little bit difficulty, but it is possible to do this exercise for this only single asset in Excel with no problem. Anyhow, I'm going to use an open source software called Python, but I'm going to assume that you know how to install it. But the point is that you should be able, or at least develop this skill, that when you see codes in some software, you should be able to translate it into your own favorite software, or at least in some way find a way to perform the same operation in the software of your own choice. Although I'm going to again assume that if you choose to use Python, you are going to do the installation and everything is your own duty. Just one way to use Python, there are many ways, is to use it via Anaconda. Just in Google type Anaconda, and if you go to this Anaconda site, get started, and you are going to, for example, use Anaconda Individual Edition. Here, if you read the document, you see it covers this sort of software such as Python and some other packages. Anyhow, after you install it, you are going to get some navigator like this that you can use. For example, this navigator to launch Jupyter Notebook. Jupyter, in case you haven't heard, is some initial for Julia, Python, and R. That is, you can write Julia program or Python or even R in this notebook. So this is my choice to do this exercise for you, of course, because it does not involve any complicated coding. In case again you want to do some, you come to the point that you want to do some complicated coding. Again, this Anaconda environment provides something like a Spider or VS Code to do, for example, more complicated coding. In a nutshell, in order to run Python, there are many ways. This is one way. Of course, you may come across some other more suitable way for yourself. Now let's get down to the solution for this exercise. In the Python, in this way, it is similar to R, that in order to perform the required operation, you have to import the required packages. In R, for example, you import libraries. This is different from MATLAB that it has toolboxes and you don't need to explicitly import toolboxes. Here are the packages that we use to do this exercise. This Y-Finance package is the package that we use to get Yahoo data from the Yahoo site. The old way to do it was that you had to go to the Yahoo Finance site, go to the historical data, and download the data. But with this facility, obtaining data has become in some way more automatic, and you don't need to do it manually. So the first point about the software of your choice is that it should in some way provide some package or some library like this. R has a, for example, library that you can use to obtain at least common data in that you need to use for your analysis. Well, after running this cell, the next cell is sort of some setting for the plotting that is required in this exercise. Now to the first part, to obtain the data from Yahoo for this specified date, we use this function to get the S&P data from Yahoo. Note that this is the symbol of S&P that Yahoo uses, and these are the start and end date that is required we provide for this function. After downloading the data, it is saved in an object called data frame. Data frame is similar to Excel, that it is a 2x2 table with column names, and of course you can provide some index for it. It is a tool that makes it easy, especially when you are working with data of high volume, and in order to manipulate it to reliably merge those data frame and so on. Of course, data frame concept is also used in R, and in MATLAB it is called data table. After running this cell, the data is obtained from Yahoo, and we are going to hear this command print out the first 5 rows of this data frame. This is a way just to check what we have obtained from Yahoo, and these are the data items that we obtained from Yahoo. Of course, we are only going to use this adjusted clause in the rest of our analysis. Here I just want to point out the benefit of using this sort of function in downloading data. For example, here when the function accepts some string as its argument, we can simply assign this string to some variable name, for example, symbol name. And use that name instead of this string. Instead of explicitly using some string, we can make it a variable. By making it a variable, it means that we can extend it to, for example, obtaining, let's say we want to obtain all the 500 components of S&P 500. If I just here make a, in some way I need to provide these symbols. For example, I add Microsoft, and other I can just keep adding all these symbols here, and finally in some I use some, for example, for loop I can use some for loop and download all those symbols in a two-line code program. Now if we try, for example, to download these two assets, here we see that now this first section is the first rows of S&P 500, and the second section is the first row of Microsoft. Of course, we can make it more explicit that it gives us some nice message that this asset is being downloaded, something like that, that we can understand what's going on. But for the purpose of this exercise, we do not need to do such operation. So we move on with the requirement of the exercise.